Hello, and welcome to the Click and Obey podcast. Today, we are going to talk about some emergency preparedness on the self protection side, right? It's like, what would you use to protect yourself, your family, whatever? That's manual self defense or hand to hand self defense, that's weaponry, that's fortification of your house, that's location where you live. That's all kind of stuff, right? And we're largely going to be talking conceptually, or at least I am, because I am by no means a guns expert, right? It's like I understand the concept and why you would use them, and how to use them, etc. But like I can't tell you the difference between an AR-15 and a lot of other fucking types of guns, right? So that's not my area. So Parmesh, let's kick it off. What are your first things you'd want to talk about here?
What's up, Derek? Yeah, so I want to remind any viewers where we left off in our previous emergency preparedness podcast was we were talking about food. We were talking about, hey, if you're in this in the long term, I think the eventuality is that you got to move near water or you got to be able to access water. And this is kind of like a thing that's as old as time, like animals migrating towards the water to aid their survival and meeting up at the watering hole or the creek or the river or the strait or you know the valley where the bodies of water are. And what inevitably happens there is, if all the prey is in one place, the predators come too. This is kind of a really old eternal struggle, and this is something that would happen in the case of, hey, in a few months time, if you have to think about a few months time of being off the grid because the electricity is completely gone. This is the thing you have to worry about is I need to get to the water for the reasons that we've already talked about. And when you get there, the inevitable fact is that predators are going to be there too. People who are going to take advantage of the situation for their own self-gain. That's just an inescapable fact in history. So I wanted to start off kind of on a more short-term basis, though, talking about, hey, there's a blackout, 2 hours, maybe 2 days, maybe a week, something like that. What do you do in terms of protection? So, if you don't already have a gun, which is really the which is really the situation you're likely to find yourself in if you're not a gun owner already, um, one really good thing besides guns is to have dogs. Now, dogs come at a cost. You have to feed them, you have to take care of them. And if you're in this situation, they're an extra mouth that you have to feed. But they are great in terms of if you have nothing, um, dogs are much better. Like they can intimidate anyone that is looking to take advantage of the fact that maybe your security systems are down because there's no electricity, or you don't have solar power or anything like that. Um, they're a very good option in the short term.
Yeah.
Now, if you do have guns, um, hopefully you've got something like a pistol. But if not, you've got something more high caliber. Um, there are different types of guns that can help you. So if you're stuck inside your house because there's crazy weather, and you're going to be stuck there for a week, the best type of gun to have is a handgun, obviously. But if you've got like a rifle or something, hopefully it's a rifle that takes like 300 caliber ammunition. There's specific ammunition that you can get that will not pierce the walls of your house or the walls of your neighbors' houses. So it's really good for home defense because you won't accidentally spray bullets into other houses. Um, so there are actually specific types of guns and specific ammunition that is better for a home defense setting where you're truly trapped at home versus something that we could talk about a little bit later, which is like, hey, I'm on the move. I have to leave the house. I'm going to be outside or in different areas than my house. So even when it comes to guns, even though we're kind of keeping it at a high level, I want to stress that there's actually different guns that have different utilities depending on where you are, what situation you're in.
Yeah, I think you bring a good point with that caliber, right? Of like, well, if you don't want to be spraying bullets through walls, right? Should some home intruder come in and you're forced to defend yourself and you've got to spray bullets, right? It's like not having to worry about the collateral damage of like, oh, if I shoot this guy, it might miss and it'll go through a wall. And what if I hit somebody outside of my house with the wall? or through the wall, right? It's like, yeah, like not having that is nice, especially if it's still something that's a caliber enough. It's like you could take down a person, right? Because at the end of the day, if someone is coming into your house while you're in and they are unwanted, most likely they're in there to cause you harm, right? Like they're probably not in
Yeah.
there just to come talk to you because man, they really just want to have a conversation on emergency preparedness of
Right.
food with you, right? Like
Right.
they're
Yeah.
probably coming in to do some damage to you, so you
They
need to be
are.
able to defend yourself. The dog's point you bring up is also really good because if nothing else, right? It's like so intimidation is good. There are a lot of dogs who are not all that intimidating, right? There's a lot of dogs you get that's like, oh yeah, you can
Oh
tell
yeah.
just by the tail wagging, they're there for pets. But what those dogs usually do is bark. And alerting is the best way to like make sure you're prepared, right? It's like if somebody's coming into your house and you're a heavy sleeper and they'll just come in, bust out a little window very, silently, climb in through, they're all the way up to your room before you even know what's happening. That's a hell of a problem. But if instead, even if they come by your door, like the dog is already barking, you're already up, you're already alert. It's like that's a huge advantage to you, right? Like you're talking
Right. Yeah.
seconds matter in situations like this. So not saying, hey, go get a dog because man, you can save your life one day via the barking at 1 a.m. in the morning, right? But that is something to gain from that at the cost of another mouth to feed and some piss on
Right.
your floor
Yeah.
sometimes, which is very annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. It is slightly annoying, but yeah, it's a great way to gain those 20 or 30 seconds that you might not otherwise have in an emergency situation. Um, One thing I do want to point out, if we're talking about, hey, I'm trapped in the house in the short term, there's a home invasion. So there's different types of things to think about here. I mentioned that specific type of ammunition, the 300 black ammunition, um, because that's something that won't pierce walls. So if you have like an AR-15 uh, type of setup, one thing you want to make sure of is that when you shoot, um, you might miss, and you don't want it to go through your wall, then go through your neighbor's wall, um, and do some damage on the inside of someone else's house, or go through your wall and go outside to where someone else might be, through a car even. I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff can happen. But also, you might want something that's a little bit quieter, and you might not want to bring attention to yourself. It depends on the situation. Like if there's more people outside that could do harm, if there's noise, they might come to the noise. On the same level, like it's kind of what you said, like that noise could also alert the right people to come help you. So if you have something like a shotgun, which is really good for that short term, um, or that short range, kind of adverse situation, it's going to create a lot of noise. It's not going to go through the wall. It's going to pepper spray your wall though, so you're going to have some damage, but you're going to do damage, and it's going to create a lot of noise, and it could actually alert maybe neighbors or friends that are nearby to come help you. So it kind of depends on what setup you're in terms of your neighborhood. Like, do you want the extra noise? Do you not want the extra noise? I think that plays into it a little bit too.
Yeah. And even then, right, like there's ways to mitigate and manage the noise yourself as well, right? Say that you do want the noise in some situations, not in the other. Get a suppressor, then deal with the noise because like there's all kinds of like you can get a damn car horn like that's next to your bedside, right? If you really needed to do it. Like it's much easier to control noise through not a gun in those situations for the most part, right? But like you said, that is something to factor in. You bring up the shotgun, it makes me think of an old Dave Chappelle skit, or not even a skit, but just a comedy bit where you probably already know where I'm going, right? It's like
Yeah.
he talks about it the first time he got a gun, and he goes in, and the guy tells him, it's like, all right, so listen, I'm going to sell you the birdshot and the buckshot. And he's like, well, why the fuck? Why am I getting both these types of bullets? And he's like, well, what you're going to do, right? You got an intruder come in, you're going to load up with birdshot, buckshot, buckshot, buckshot. And he's like, well, why the fuck am I doing this? He's like, first one warns them. If it hits them, it's going to hurt like hell. They'll get the message, get the fuck out of there. Next one, they still coming, you put them down. Next one, if they're hurt and you need them to get the fuck out of there, you pepper them again with the birdshot. And after that, no, you just start firing. Like you don't give a shit. You just start firing. I was like, yeah, that's essentially kind of the message, right? It's like, if you can warn people away and just scare them off, great. Like that is the ideal situation. But if you can't, make sure you come out alive. Like that's just it, right? It's like you have to protect yourself and your family first, and that's the unfortunateness of the situation if somebody comes into your house.
Yep. So, or just onto your property in general. So you bring up a real interesting point, which is that uh, you it's completely contextual to whether or not you want noise or not. So I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about in the context of some of the events today and some of the similarities to the situations that people are finding themselves in various cities. So there's kind of this whole defund the police movement. I don't want to sidetrack too far into it, but I think a lot of people in some of the bigger cities that are probably going to go through with this type of initiative are going to find themselves having to defend themselves, especially if they're in neighborhoods that are, um, partially gentrified. So it's just kind of this weird mix of like,
We'll just call it Riot Central. Like there are locations
yeah,
that are more apt for riots and other things to happen. It's just a fact, right? That doesn't mean that
yeah,
they're bad locations or anything, but when you're in like very dense, centers where there's shops and other things that can happen, it's like you're in Riot Central. Like that just is what
yeah.
it is.
There's a higher probability of rioting. And whether it's your business or your personal residence, you might find yourself in this situation. Um, and this type of stuff matters. Like these little minute details that Dave Chappelle was joking about. It's like that's real life. That's actually what people are doing with their shotguns. It's like, okay, I need to be able to fire a warning shot. I need to be able to fire a real shot. Like those are the actual situations that are going to crop up. And I think it's important that you have to be prepared not only in terms of materials, like what materials you have, but also to actually like take action.
Yeah, you need to plan this stuff out, right? Like what you would do in these
Yeah.
situations, which is half of what these videos are about, right? It's just planning. Like we're giving you options of short term, mid term, long term, right? And it's like we're not suggesting, hey, go out and get the long term solution to this. But if you plan such that you understand what the situation is or what you could be running into, you're way advanced compared to most people, right? Most people, it's like
Right.
even
Yeah.
if they buy a gun, they're like, oh, I have the gun. It's in the nightstand if you're an idiot, or if it's in a lockbox where it's like, hey, it's prepared and it's good to go and stuff like that. It's like, hey, that's great. You're prepared for the situation, but do you know what you're gonna do? Do you know it's like, hey, how am I gonna tell if they're in here like for cause or something, or if maybe it's some like idiot who's on drugs who I can just like pepper and they'll run away because they're scared. Like, what is my cop response time here? Like, if I'm looking to go that route, because people might be trying. It's like, I don't really want to shoot anybody, right? So if the cops can come and handle it, I would much prefer that to me, right? But it's like, you got to think through all these things. And like I said, it's like, that's part of this preparedness is just knowing like what you're going to do in any one of these situations.
Yeah, because I think people way oversimplify just the handling of guns. Like they, you see it all the time today. They're just like, well, why didn't this cop shoot this person in the hand that where that person had their knife in their hand or whatever. It's like, well, life isn't a video game where you just like pick up the controller, aim for the guy's hand while he's, in a stabbing motion and only shoot his hand.
And just
You
as a
know,
favor to me, the next time you hear somebody say that, it's like
you're not
figuratively
serious.
just slap them across the face because like what
Yeah.
are they what are they talking about? That's just
Yeah.
nonsense. It's like and like so let's bring it to topical things, right? It's like the God, what was the place in Ohio? Where was it? Was that Columbus? Where they're
I think
saying
it was Columbus.
yeah,
Yeah.
where they were saying how he should have shot the girl in the hand where she had a knife or shot a warning shot. One, they've banned warning shots for forever. That's not a thing. Because guess what? If the bullet goes up, it's coming
It
down.
comes
How do you know
down.
you wouldn't have shot somebody in the head from a warning shot? You don't know where that's going. You don't know who that's going to hit. You don't know the trajectory or whatnot. Also, you don't know that that's stopping her. You don't know that that's going to like wake somebody up. If you're in the middle of a fight, like your hearing and what you can pay attention to goes out the window, right? Like your adrenaline's flowing. Like you can land planes behind people who are in the middle of a fight, right? Because like they're just like they are so into the moment. Two, this guy actually was a trained marksman. Like this guy had, if I recall correctly, it's like he actually has like training on marksman, and that's why he was also able to come in and put 4 bullets right on point in the middle of a hairy ass situation. And it's like you don't shoot for some small ass target. Like, because also, he doesn't know anything about her movements. He doesn't know how erratic they're going to be. He doesn't know their straight line. He doesn't know if it's 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, 20, like how fast she's moving as far as like, what she can move with the knife. It's like, so these people acting like, oh, he should have shot her in the hand. There's infinite variables here. And to think that, oh, because also, what if he misses by an inch on that and he hits the other girl in the face? Her hand is
Yep.
moving towards the other girl's neck. So guess
Oh,
what?
yeah.
If he misses the hand, he might hit the other girl in the head. Oh, that's
Not
great.
to mention,
Oh,
not to mention that it can go through the hand. Very likely will. Any decent caliber will. And when it goes through the hand, where is it going to go after that? So this idea that you can just, like a video game, just pick up your Xbox controller, aim it slowly to the individual body part and shoot. If that is your mindset
yeah, you can just turn
for
on bullet time essentially, right? It's like the
yeah,
split second freeze frame it.
yeah, if that's your mindset for owning a gun, like you buy a gun, you're like, okay, I'll just video game it whenever the moment comes. It's like, okay, well, you really need to stop and think
And
because
that's why I don't.
that's not serious.
That's why I don't take anti-gun people seriously for the most part because they say stupid shit like that. It's like, listen, you just don't know what you're talking about. If you
Yeah.
want to have a discussion on how do we get court adjudication to make sure it's like if somebody has like a mental issue, what can we do as far as that, and making sure that we handle the process and we can take guns more quickly if there is somebody that you're worried about. Sure, we can have that discussion. If you want to talk to me about how do you fucking incorporate bullet time and shooting somebody's like a knife out of their hand or a gun out of their hand or something, you're an idiot. Like you don't know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. You don't need to be in this conversation because like you're just saying, "Hey, guns are scary. I'm so scared that I can't think rationally." And you don't deserve to be in the
Yeah.
conversation. That is what it is.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree. And so like when you purchase a gun, go to the range, like actually practice, like fire at a paper target, which is what most people do with guns 99.99% of the time. It's actually a kind of meditative and relaxing thing. Um, and you'll learn how hard it is to hit a paper target. It's really hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard to hit it well. Like it's not simple. It's like when you hit it well, you hit it clean, like both accurate and precise. It's not easy. But if you're gonna, if you're really serious about self-protection, that's something you need to do. And once you do that, I think you realize like, hey, number one, everything you learned about a gun like AR-15, which by the way, the AR doesn't stand for assault rifle. Um, so
Just another thing
stop
that
that.
people who don't know about anything
Yeah.
about guns. I just
But yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead.
the number of people who think that, who also, I heard the other day somebody was telling me, it's like, well, we got to look at, how many semi-automatic, rifles we're allowing. I was like, okay, like pretty much all the rifles are semi-automatic. They're like, no, no, no. I mean, the things that like just shoot a spray of bullets. It's like, so not semi-automatic. It's like they didn't even understand what semi-automatic means. And
Yeah.
it's like, but guys, 99, what is it, 99.99% of guns are semi-automatic. You're basically, if you don't want automatic, okay, that barely exists anyway. If you don't want
Yeah.
semi-automatic, so you're talking about just bolt-action rifles. That's what you're talking about. That's the list we have. No, they had more than that in the fucking colonial age. Like, what are you talking about? Get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so stupid. That's so freaking stupid. It's unreal. Yeah.
And like you said, AR
But
does not stand for assault rifle. It's a platform, and also
yeah.
it's amazing how you can make guns illegal just based on the accessories you put on the same gun. Like you can add just a pistol grip to some things, and all of a sudden it becomes illegal in certain states.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
hold on, because
You
of a
know,
pistol grip? What are we doing here?
yeah, I've actually got a personal beef with this. There is a specific gun that I really, really like. I think it's a great gun. A lot of people agree, and it's an AR-15 pistol. There's various um, kind of renditions of this. Like Daniel Defense makes a really, really nice one, and I've had the opportunity to fire it a few times. And I'd buy it, but there's a little brace. It's for stabilizing the gun, and that brace goes on your wrist. And that brace, by virtue of having that brace, you're just in a complete crazy like quasi state of, oh my god, they're going to have to forcibly buy back the gun at any point in time. Like this is a ongoing issue. This stupid brace prevents myself and other people from buying this AR-15 pistol, which is basically like a short barrel rifle, because of the brace. Because that's the thing that people are targeting. They're like, hey, if this thing can accept this brace, um, we might need to take this gun away. There's like a really crazy fight over just this one stupid part that barely has anything to do with the gun itself. It's like most people don't even hardly use the brace. It's just like the very fact that you can attach this brace on this thing and stabilize makes this gun like a huge threat. But I digress.
Yeah, I think I detoured us because we'll bring it back. But also, is when people try to talk to you about how guns are scary and they shouldn't be allowed and you shouldn't have them, whatever, like tell them to go fuck themselves. They are used for your protection. That's why police have them, as it turns
Yeah,
out. So if they
yeah,
don't want guns, I assume they're talking about, oh, well, then police shouldn't have them. And so when anybody gets shot by like any kind of like gang affiliation or just somebody who has a gun, because it turns out if they don't care about murder, they don't care about your gun laws, it's like, maybe they should just go shut the fuck up and you can get back to preparing yourself for like what if the worst happens.
yeah. I was also going to point out that the legislators who make the legislation and lambast guns in general, who do you think they're protected by, and what do you think they're protected by?
Yeah. Guess what? I'll get rid of my guns if you allow me to have, and by allow, I mean pay for, my personal security who get to have guns. Then I'll get
Yeah.
rid of mine. That'll be fine. I'm good with that.
Yep. Yep. I should have the same protection as our representatives, which is they're not our leaders, by the way. They're our representatives.
Yeah,
Always
no
remember
shit.
that.
Yep.
And we pay them because we're the boss. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, Dave Smith had a good rant on that, but continue your point.
Oh yeah. No, all I'm saying is that this kind of cartoonish, video game-ish, movie-ish, Hollywood-ish view of how to handle guns is an incorrect one. When you're in those situations, like the you need to be worried about what type of gun do I have? What type of ammo do I have? How am I handling the gun? Am I able to get it in and out of the safe? Do I know where it is? Is it properly put in the safe? Do I know how to get it in and out? Do I know how to take it apart and clean it? Do I know how to reload? Um, the Dave Chappelle skit. Do I have the right ammunition for the job? Like I need to fire a warning shot with the shotgun that might pepper, but not completely kill an intruder.
Yeah. And let's
Um,
note, not an up in the air warning shot, like an actually, I'm going to do
yeah, not an
damage
up
to
in the air
you,
warning shot.
but enough that you don't
Yeah.
die, but enough you need to get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a real like shot at the intruder. Yeah, we should totally clarify that. Do not do a warning shot, please. Please, God, do not do a warning shot up in the air. That's
No.
so stupid.
If you decide you're
Um,
going to point a gun at somebody, you better be ready to kill them. That's the only
yeah,
time that that is
yeah.
acceptable.
Also, review the kinematics equations if you've forgotten those, because what comes up must come down, and there's a certain trajectory to it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you have to be thinking about the things that you can control and not the Hollywood envisionment of how it should be. And that's really important. And it gets more important whenever you're outside of the house. So I want to talk about, the more long-term situation. Let's say you're looking
Can
at
I
months.
can I hold off on that for 1 second because I
Oh
want to
yeah,
point
yeah,
one point about being in the house too is like so having the gun right like that's up to you if it's a necessity or not. It's like I think me and Parmesh would assume it's like it is. We hope to never use it, right? But like it just is what it is. But also it's like we mentioned with the dogs, alerting, right? Giving yourself time. Because hey, if you've got your gun behind a safe because you probably have either kids or just people, it's like you want to make sure there's a gun safe that you have this and store it in, right? So you need as much time as possible because you don't want to be like scrambling, now just putting the bullets in and all of a sudden, somebody's in your room doing whatever. So just the little things that you can even do around is like making sure your house is always locked, making sure that when you go to bed that you've got a lock on your door, right? It's like you want to make sure that you've put as much in between you and somebody else coming in to get at you as possible, right? And these are not things that are going to save you minutes, right? It's like, yeah, if somebody gets in, they can bust in and they can get through in a matter of seconds. But if you add 5 seconds here and 5 seconds here and 5 seconds here, right? Now all of a sudden you're looking at an extra 30 seconds. That's a fucking monumental amount of time. Like that matters so much. So those little things also are things to think about. It's not just how you do gun safety, but it's like how are you prepared when they get there, whether you have a gun or not. Because even if you don't have a gun, right, you decide, hey, I'm going to do physical combat. I'm going to have a bat. I'm going to have a knife. I'm going to have whatever. It's like, well, see what happens if you have instant you have to react or you have 30 seconds to react. Big difference in
right.
what you're going to be able to do.
And I want to further that point. That's a great point because there's a critical path here too. There's a critical path to an invasion happening. So if, an invader gets in, they might go up the stairs. What if your room isn't the first room in the critical path? What if it's your kid's room? You have to think about that stuff too. So maybe your kid shouldn't be sleeping in that room. And maybe they should be in your room for the duration of however long this crazy situation is going on, with the electricity being out and water being inaccessible. those are the types of things you got to think about too, because it's like, okay, you might have all this stuff, but if the critical path has your kids or something first, and there's not even a dog in the way, um, it defeats the whole purpose. Like if you can't protect the people that need the protection the most, and you're last in the critical path, like, okay, well, great. What's that baseball bat going to do? Like you need those few seconds of precious time, and you need to make sure that in terms of the critical path that things are in the right order. So if they're going to come, they better come for you first, not for your kids.
Yeah, no, 100% right. Like that's always something to think about. Is just like where are you at? If somebody was coming into your house, how would they get there? And presume too, they have no knowledge, right? Like if you have somebody who knows your house layout and whatever, and it's like basically a relative who's gone like crazy or a friend who's gone crazy, whatever. It's like you kind of SOL on that one, unfortunately, right? It's like they're going to be able to get through
Yep.
stuff a lot faster. But if it's someone who's breaking in who doesn't know the layout of your house necessarily, right? There's a lot of things you can do to mitigate and to make sure that you're going to have a little bit extra time. And even if it's like, yeah, maybe you're not on the first, part of the critical path just because of the layout of your house and the way it works, right? But what can you do to make it where it's like they almost get funneled, or even just preparing your kid? It's like, hey, you sleep with your door locked, right? It's like I have access via whatever key or whatever, you got those doorknobs that have the locks that you can kind of spin and put a pin in, whatever. It's like, but hey, you sleep with the door locked. Like that just is what it is, right? Like you need to also be aware of like it's a level of protection and to what you should be able to do and what you should have set up, right? And if you hear noise at night, and if I yell to you to do something, it's like being prepared and saying like, hey, get out of your bed, do whatever. Like these are the types of things, like I said, that you're just adding seconds and it sounds like nothing. If you're in an emergency, it's fucking everything.
Yeah, it's life and death at that point. Yeah, so that I think that's the real takeaway from all this is like you have to think about how you're going to perform when you've got seconds, not a video game rendition of it or a Hollywood movie rendition of it. Like you have to think about what you're going to do when you've got seconds and plan accordingly. Buy things, whether it's guns, knives, baseball bats, whatever, accordingly.
Yeah.
Um,
And two, like doing some walkthroughs is, I mean, people will make fun of you. You're prepping. What are you prepping for? Whatever. It turns out it's like training is the best way to make sure you do something correct, right? So if you say, hey,
yeah,
I woke up, it's something's happening. I don't know what's happening. Just time yourself. How long would it take you? And do it at a casual pace too, right? Because like when you're freaking out, and it's the middle of the night, you just woke up, you're going to be at a shit pace. You're not going to be like, oh, I'm wide awake at 2 p.m. and I had my caffeine drink before and I was able to go and do stuff, right? It's like, no,
yeah,
imagine like walk. Don't run, do anything, because that's kind of what the pace is you're going to have. You're going to be out of it. So it's like walk through exactly what you would do, how much time it would take. Find out, it's like, oh, do I actually need a minute of time? Well, how do I get myself a minute of time? Right? Is there a way? If there's not a way, what could I do to truncate? It's like, do I need to move something closer to me? Do I need to move something further away from something else? Right? That stuff matters. The training is useful. And also, it's like while you're talking about going to the range, if everybody could use some kind of tactical training, right? They offer those courses. One, I hear they're fun as hell,
yep,
right? I've never done
they
one
are.
myself. It's something I'd also love to do at some point. It's like that kind of stuff is, could be great. It's like you never know what's going to happen. And every little bit of training helps.
Yeah, you need to make yourself simultaneously extremely dangerous and extremely disciplined and restrained. That's kind of the whole thing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
someone who is both dangerous but extremely disciplined and restrained is in general a good person, a good person to have around.
Yeah, it's a good set of
Um,
attributes, right? It's like, I mean, just like that's why the men of old were, so looked up to, right? Like that's the tribal leaders were the people who were the
right.
most dangerous, but also the people who were the most disciplined, because it's like, hey, they could take you out in an instant, but they don't, and there's a reason they don't, and there's a reason they
Yeah.
do if they do it.
Yep. And yeah, and so a little reluctance never hurts.
Yeah, because also don't forget,
Um,
right? It's like if shit's going down and you've got a 5-year-old or something, you don't know what your 5-year-old's going to do. You just have no idea. You don't know what the intruder's going to do, but at least they're probably an adult of some kind and they'll act in like some kind of rational way. You don't know what a 5-year-old's going to do. You don't know what a
right.
10-year-old. You don't know what a child. Hell, you don't even know what that adult's going to do realistically, right? So it's like making sure you're restrained. Where if you see that, hey, you can de-escalate the situation without the use of a gun, fucking great. Do that. Like that's the best outcome of any of this.
Right. 100%. Um, so yeah. Uh,
And I
let's
cut you
let's
off.
move
You were
on.
gonna, yeah, you were gonna talk about, more of the long term, you know.
Oh yeah, no. The long term thing. So it's kind of the scenario that I mentioned at the very beginning of like, hey, everyone's hurting towards the water because that's the basis of life. You need water, and there's probably going to be an episode here pretty soon about water. We've hinted at it probably with the both the electricity and the food episodes already. But um, so when you head to the water and you're out in the open, that's a completely different thing. It's like now you're not in the comfort of your home. You don't have the ability to prepare as much, and it's all about how comfortable you are with your tools rather than how comfortable you are with your environment and fitting the tools to your environment. Um, so that's one thing to keep in mind. That's I don't want to go too far in depth, but it's like the closer you get to the water in this scenario where electricity and everything is down. Obviously, police are probably non-existent at this point. You need electricity for police. I don't know how they're not going to know about situations, and they're not going to be able to communicate with each other effectively. They're not going to be able to be an effective police unit without the ability to coordinate um, through state mechanisms, like their talkies and all that sort of stuff. So you're basically counting out the police. You're probably not rich enough to hire your own security firm. So it is up to you to get to the water because you need water to survive and to get out of there alive too. And people like the best possible way to take best possible place to take advantage in terms of people that are in a compromising position is near the watering hole. People that are vulnerable and don't have protection and desperate for survival. Those are the easiest people to take advantage of for people that are looking to take advantage, or there will be in this situation. Um, so in that situation, you might not want just handguns. You might want rifles. Like rifles are much better suited for these kind of outdoor situations. You need something probably with a scope, um, so you can simultaneously scope out areas. But if there's something coming towards you or firing at you from a distance, you have the ability to defend yourself. And the thing is, you know, you might say, why not just have binoculars? Well, it's like, well, if there are people looking to take advantage, which it's not really an if, it's a when, um, and we know that guns exist, like guns are not just going to disappear overnight. You have to be far away from them first before you get closer to them. That's just how traveling works, right? And if they have that advantage of being able to see you from far away and fire on you, and you don't have anything back, you're at their mercy.
Hmm.
And so that's why I say, rifle with a scope is a very good option if you're thinking about kind of going out into the open and you know that that type of threat is out there,
Yeah, and
not
nothing
just binoculars.
precludes the use of binoculars, right? It's like if you want that
Right. Yeah.
extra because, like, hey, you want to be able to scout out an area and somebody else has a gun, or you don't feel like pulling it out because you're not worried about the area or whatever. It's like that's totally acceptable as well, right? But I mean, if you have a rifle, it's like you probably want to scope on it at this kind of situation, right? It's like, yeah, if you're just pleasure shooting and you want to go scopeless and just kind of dick around, sure, absolutely. But if you're looking to actually like protect yourself and you need something with long distance, it's like probably have a scope. It's just better. Like there's a reason that like the military uses scopes on their weapons when they're going
Right.
for
Yeah.
stuff, right? Like it is the most efficient way. I don't care how skilled you are, you're more skilled with a scope.
Right. Yeah. 100%. And so, yeah, that's the type of stuff. Like if you're going to be investing in equipment to protect yourself, that's why you would invest in a scope. That's why you would invest in an AR-15 platform, period, is because, you can exchange scopes. It's very easy to assemble the thing that will meet your needs. Um, but yeah, that's really what I want to say about the wide open areas. It's like all that close range stuff is not as valuable in I mean it could be, you might find yourself in a close situation. You might be it might not be wide open. It might be kind of more in the woods, between trees type of thing. Um,
Well, the
but
close
in general,
situation is the more short term slash always, scenario, right? It's like,
yeah, it's kind of always, yeah.
yeah, because like it's an always scenario. You're always, I mean, hopefully you will always be in a house and you will always be around your family and all this stuff like that, and that's what you would want this scenario for. Short term would be more like hey, the electricity went out, or, a bad court decision happened, so good luck, kind of
Bad court
situation.
decision.
But, long term is like, okay, civilization has kind of gone to hell. Something's happened, right? That it's just gone crazy here. Or just, I mean, realistically, it would still be the same thing. If electricity went out for fucking months because, like, our power grid is so poorly constructed that, one wrong thing can take it out for months. Yeah, you're looking at some shitty situations where you have to have this long term thinking. And that's the situations we never hoping to be in. But it is important to talk about them and fun to conceptualize exactly what the hell you need to do in them.
Right, yeah. And just remember that, like, especially when it comes to self-defense, I've said it multiple times already, but it's not like the movies, it's not like the video games. You really have to think this out. Um, you're not going to be shooting people's knives out of their hands or whatever. You have to think about critical paths. You have to think about, like, where am I storing this thing? Can I clean this thing? Do I need these parts? Um, what are
Do I
the
have enough
situations I might
ammo?
find
How
myself
much
in?
does
Do I
fucking
have,
ammo
yeah,
cost right now?
yeah. How much ammo do I have? Not to say go out and stockpile ammo, but like, how much ammo do you have?
Yeah.
Um,
At this
do you
point,
have a
you
weight?
might stockpile ammo because the cost just keeps going up and it gets out of
Yeah,
stock. It's basically a commodity. I mean, it always
yeah,
is a
yeah,
commodity, right? But it's like actually a currency building commodity.
yeah, yeah. You know what they say? Like, uh, at this point, crypto, land, and ammo, and precious metal.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
it's like, oh, and toilet paper. Forgot about that.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, you just couldn't live without toilet paper. There's
Yeah,
no other way to wipe your bum or to clear it out than without toilet paper.
yeah, yeah. Nope, nope, never been solved. Actually, that brings us back to the water point, I guess. Why you might need water in the long term because you don't have enough of the toilet paper currency.
I mean,
But
if it goes bad, just use cash. Like,
yeah, it's true. Because
might as
what do you
well.
need to? Yeah,
If
what do you need the fiat for?
Yeah, exactly right. If you're in a situation where it's like you're depending on heavy metals and land and ammo, guess what? That currency, you might as well just wipe your ass with it. It's over.
Yeah,
That doesn't matter
yeah.
anymore.
You really, literally, because it's worth shit.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't have much more to add on. Actually, I think
I
that
honestly
we
don't.
covered the broad strokes.
Yeah, I don't either, right? Because this is one of those areas where, and also too, it's one of those things where it causes a lot of strife. It's people of conflict of like, guns are bad, guns are scary, and I get it. And if I upset you earlier because I called you a fucking idiot because you thought that warning shots were a thing or you could shoot some out of the hand, and you still happen to be here, right? It's like, I'm sorry, you were an idiot on that deal, but also it's like there's a ton of ways that are not guns to be preparing yourself, right? It's just like if you think a knife is going to work, if you think a bat, if you think, having the time, because like I said, a minute's a huge deal. If somebody breaks into your house, having that amount of time to prepare yourself and to even just steal yourself and be ready for them to come in, right? It's like that matters a lot. So yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much all I have because that's the main scenario that I worry about. Just always is like it's the emergency preparedness for me is not long term. I'm not that worried about it. It's the short term of somebody breaks into my house because they're a fucking asshole and they're looking to cause damage, right? Whether that's a riot situation, whether that's somebody who's drugged up, whether that's somebody who's just a fucking murderer, right? It's like what is it? The number is staggering of the amount of people who defend themselves with guns every year, right?
Right, yeah,
And
it is a huge number.
it's a staggering number. It's well higher than the amount of like homicides that happen from guns every year. So, I mean, just that should tell you a lot about like it can happen to you. Hope it never does, and your percentage chance of it happening to you is fairly small, but it
It
can.
is, yeah. It
So
can, and if you're in this kind of emergency situation like we're talking about, where like in Texas, everything froze over, energy was gone, water was gone, the probability of that happening increases. Oh, and social unrest too. Say that a court
exactly.
verdict doesn't go the right way, and and maybe the police get defunded and et cetera, et cetera.
And if you really want to think about it, right, it's like, okay, say that you have a 0.1% chance of something like this happening to you, right? Which is, it's not nothing, but it's pretty infinitesimal. It's pretty small. What the fuck chance did you have of a global pandemic happening in 2020 where you got locked in your house and you had to wear a mask all the time? What would you have said those chances were, say 2019, 2018, 2017? Would you have said they were 0.1% lower, like way lower? Then yeah, the shit can happen. So be
Yeah.
prepared. Don't say, oh, it probably won't, because who gives a shit if it probably won't? The fact that it can means you should probably be prepared for it in some capacity, whether that's just planning or actually having the resources to do something about it.
Yeah, and look, listen, it's not even so much about the probability as the difference in probability. If you want to talk about probability and managing risk, and that's what people use to counter this argument. It's like, no, it's the difference that matters. So maybe it is 0.1%. Okay. Well, first, I would take your point, but second, even if I didn't take your point, what does it change to from 0.1% when, say, the grid is gone, water is gone for 3 weeks? It's not 0.1% anymore, is it? It might be 4%. And that jump from zero point 0.1 to 4%, that's a huge jump in probability. And at some point, you got to draw a line. Even if you say, like, yeah, it's 0.1%, I'm not going to worry about it. I don't know why I use that voice to say that, but maybe I have some disdain for these people. But at some point, it's going to cross a number line that your mathematical risk assessing brain is going to have to deal with, and you should be prepared.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Honestly, I don't have too much more than that. It's come up with your own risk assessment and also say that you're prepared and something never happens. What's the problem with that? Oh, you wasted a few $100s you could have spent on some other bullshit. What does that mean? You got to work an extra week of your life to cover it to make sure that you're safe for this, pretty rare circumstance where it might happen. Oh no, that's terrible. How could you have had to
Yeah.
work one extra week in your life to be prepared?
Oh, boo hoo.
Yeah.
But all right, yeah, I think we can call it a wrap. That was a fun one. So if you're enjoying this series, enjoy seeing our mugs on video. Um, like and subscribe to us. We're on YouTube. We're on Library and Odyssey as well. We'll probably be expanding a little bit further beyond that. And don't forget to share. Definitely share, subscribe, like, um, and stay safe.
See ya.